Hello again. This is day 4 of our Staff and Teachers Week of Prayer, and I want to fill this space with the conversation of self-care. You've heard it said, the greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no greater commandment than these. So often we try to summarize this verse into a more simplified version. We basically try to make it tweetable. So we say, love God, love others. And this is a very beautiful phrase because it goes on a shirt really easily. You can throw it on a bumper sticker, and when you retweet it, someone down the line is going to be like, yes! It's something that everyone agrees to. This is by far the most agreed upon statement in the entire world. We fight on politics, we fight on belief, we fight on traditions, but we never fight on this statement because we can all agree to this. Love God, love others. But just like everything Jesus does and says, you can't necessarily capture the full essence of the statement in a tweet. So while Jesus' words are incredibly tweetable, engaging with the context and the whole saying gives us insight into the true power of the statement. And while loving God and loving others is a truth by which we stand, believe it or not, it's not the whole truth. Because the whole statement reads like this. Let's break it down. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And then he states, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. First thing to note is that Jesus is reciting Exodus. The second note is that the statement doesn't begin by loving God as the first action step. The first action step is actually, hear, O Israel, the Lord is one. The first action step is to listen. And listening in the Bible is believing. It's absorbing. It's a coming into existence. So in other words, my people, my nation, my children, take this message in and let it marinate. The Lord our God is one. This isn't a statement of monotheism. And in some sense, it's not necessarily a direct reference to the Trinitarian openness or oneness of God, but rather that God is complete. God is whole. So think of this as the thesis to the next two statements. Here's the theme of the commandment. God is complete. God is whole. So what Jesus is doing is he is describing the holistic image of which our own image was created from. So then he moves on to the famous words. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. Notice the holistic language there. And this one is a no-brainer for all of us. Of course, we're supposed to love God with every part of our being. Of course, we're supposed to give everything to him. But here's what I've noticed we've done to actually dismiss this statement. And it has everything to do with the following commandment. The second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. Consider that final statement first. There is no greater commandment than these. The word commandment is singular. Again, it's holistic. For that language to be singular means that to do one and not the other is to dismiss either one. If you do the first and not do the second, the act of obedience is moot, and vice versa. So again, love God, love others, that makes sense. They go together. Awesome. But there's a third element we often dismiss. Again, if we do not obey, dismisses the entire commandment. The second statement doesn't end at love thy neighbor. The statement reads, love thy neighbor as yourself. This is what we mostly leave out because the virtue of sacrifice is embedded within our Christian hearts. We sometimes distort that virtue into a lack of self-care, often considering self-care as selfishness. Yet the lack of love for thyself typically eats away at the heart that leads to literally physical, mental, and spiritual trauma. And you'll see this in weight gain. You find yourself to be more irritable. You'll notice a lack of energy and even the need to be even more isolated than you already are. And this is real for not just teachers, but everyone living in today's world. But like I said before, teachers are held to such a high standard with so little pay and very little time that the need to perform can overwhelm your self-care. And self-care, the love of self, is deeply embedded into the love of God and love of neighbor. So how can you practice self-care? It's no secret that prayer is important. It's no secret that exercise is important. What happens to us though, and I'm speaking to myself as I speak to you, is the energy depletion that leads to the misdiagnosis of lack of time. The true diagnosis to the problem is not time, it's energy. So how do we solve the problem of energy depletion? I can totally give you some practical tips, like go for a walk at least 15 minutes a day, every hour. Every hour, stop and do 20 push-ups or squats. Or I could even tell you to set a prayer timer, but then the energy it takes to schedule that may even overwhelm you too. So instead, I'm gonna drop this concept and you can take from it what you want and also apply it wherever you want. In Japan, there's a practice called Shinrin Yoku. Shinrin means forest and Yoku means bath. So Shinrin Yoku means bathing in the forest atmosphere, or taking in the forest through our senses. This is not exercise. It's not even just walking through the forest or going for a drive to find a forest. It is simply being with nature, connecting through our senses of sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. The Japanese people describe Shinrin Yoku as a bridge. By opening our senses, it bridges the gap between us and the natural world. Living in LA, this is much harder to do as we are surrounded by a concrete jungle. However, again, Shinrin Yoku is not necessarily going into a forest, but rather connecting ourselves to other parts of creation. As we are all a part of creation, to tap back into the kind of love God has for His creation gives us back our energy. There are times that people will take energy from us, and that there are times that they give us energy. But the concept of Shinrin Yoku puts us in a place of prayer that connects us back through our senses, the kind of love that God has within the things in our surroundings. So this kind of concept can be translated as such, especially for those who are always on the move. Maybe as you go on the move, take some time to notice the beauty. On your drive, maybe focus less on your anger toward the guy who cut you off, and rather take some time to notice the sunrise you witness on your commute. Or if you're an extrovert, maybe being on the phone with at least one person each day could give a little bit of life to you. In any way, consider the things that give you life, that lift your spirits, and consider adding at least bits and pieces of those things so you can practice the love of God, the love of others, and the love of self.